America. This is Uncle Sam with music and the truth until dawn. Right now, I got a few words for some of our brothers and sisters in the occupied zone. The chair is against the wall. The chair is against the wall. John has a long mustache. John has a long mustache. It's 12 o'clock, Americans, another day closer to victory. And for all of you out there on or behind the lines, this is your song.
And welcome everybody to our daily gun show. Come to you live every weeknight at midnight Eastern, and we talk about guns for an hour. It is episode number 868, and it's Wednesday, so we've been doing the show for a while, and right now it's a panel discussion. So if you want to be part of the panel, check your emails. I send them out to a lot of 2A activists out there, people that are fighting the good fight. And then if you're a member of gun channels and you're active in the chats, I'll send you a link out over there. Let us know if you would like to join. And we've got a couple of people joining us tonight. Dead Horse jumping in from Utah. Thanks for joining.
Howdy. Thanks for having me.
You bet. And Gary jumping in from Kansas. Thanks for joining.
Hey, thanks for the invite.
And let's see. It is episode 686. Normally on Wednesdays we talk about entertainment and stuff, but I've been working on a project, so I figured we'd start out by taking a look at that. So I'm going to screen share here, and basically I've got 13 images here that I've been working on for a video project. Every couple of years or so, I guess it's turned out I like to take a look back and see where we've been over the years, and that's what we're looking at here. So if we look at how long has this been? 16 years we've been doing this, or is that 15 years, I guess, now? 2020 will be our 16th year. I was listening to a chat the other day, and people, I guess, aren't familiar with everything we've been doing over the years, and I guess if somebody's sort of YouTube centric, or they've just jumped online and they're just following feeds and they're not paying attention to archives or paying attention to older stuff, then you might not catch all the stuff that's been going on. So in an effort to let people know, and then in an effort to archive it all, just to see what else has been going on, I think it was an interesting effort. And then as the project evolved, I started to see some patterns in our overall philosophies and where we've been going. So that's what we're going to take a look at. So if we fill in all those years, that's what it looks like to have 15 years worth of a project. We started back in 97, actually, doing stuff online. And by 2004, we had clients, and I stopped working for Microsoft, and we went full-time into online stuff, websites, and building websites for people, maintaining websites. Maybe we did some computer work. We did some online tech support and stuff like that. But basically I quit my day job, and a couple other guys went part-time, and we went full-time into our company. And then Gun Websites started in 2004 officially. That's when we bought the website and decided to intentionally put some effort into just guns, putting gun stuff online. And that was a long time ago as far as the history of the internet and stuff. But one of the things that we did in 2005 was attend SHOT Show for the first time as media, going through and getting media credentials, and actually working with the SHOT Show media people to figure out how to determine who owns a website. That was kind of neat. And I think we might have been one of the first, if not the first, media to come in as predominantly internet. And that wasn't really a big thing yet. It didn't have much, it wasn't established, and it wasn't like considered real media. So it was a step, I think, to join in to the media portion of SHOT Show back then. And throughout the years, we've gone every year. It used to be in Florida every once in a while, so we have a couple of times where we attended in Florida. It used to be at the convention center. And kind of see here from 2010 on, it's been at the Sands. So most of the experience with SHOT Show now has been in Vegas at the Sands, but luckily we did have a couple of years of experience there to travel around and see some different venues and stuff. And when we started to look at that, it's been our like backbone of our projects, going to the SHOT Show, seeing the industry. I think gives us a finger on the pulse. It lets us see the industry, not just the transactions and the commerce side of it, but the whole industry, and it brings everybody together. So that's been definitely a resource for us, and an advantage being so close to Vegas, to be able to attend on such a long streak. So that's been a big part of our projects and a big influence on us being able to maintain our relationships with people at a thing like SHOT Show. So then getting into some of the things that we evolved, I guess, along the way, we started going to the NRA show in 2009. And that was pretty cool. And there's multiple ways to look at our history, but starting in 4, when we just were basically amateurs playing. Somewhere around 2005, we started taking it a little bit more seriously, and by 2009, we attended the NRA show just to see what was so different between it and SHOT, and it was eye-opening, and encouraged us to attend it again. We attended it in 2010, but since it's a traveling show, it's not been something we've been able to attend, so as far as priorities go, it has not been a priority. If it ever shows up in Phoenix, I'm sure we'll attend again, but instead, I'll go on to the next slide, and we attended the Gun Rights Policy Conference finally in 2015. I became aware of it in 2009, and I'm kicking myself to this day that I didn't attend when it was in Phoenix in 2009. I'm sure we would have had a different gun websites and potentially a different environment today if we would have started going as active as we are 6 years earlier. But in 2015, thanks to the prodding of Charles Heller, who knew what we were doing and expected and anticipated I would enjoy the Gun Rights Policy Conference, I did attend, and that certainly changed the route of what we've been doing. And as we get into more and more levels on this thing, you'll see that this was definitely a pivot point. 2005 was a pivot point for us. 2009 was a bit of a pivot point. Getting to that meeting in Phoenix was neat, but then having to get to the meeting in North Carolina the next year was a challenge, and we'll talk about that a bit. But this kind of shows that we've traveled a little bit, but once we get into the next levels of our experience, I guess, chronologically, the travel is going to become more and more part of it. So one of the first things we did with gun websites was share our experiences out here in the West. I came from out East. The other guys grew up out here, and they just didn't realize what they had out here. And I would tell my friends about what we could do as far as hunting and going shooting, and we just posted stuff as hobbyists to share our experiences out here and to brag a little bit and to let them see what it's like to be out in the West. And as those websites got used, and eventually we'll talk about how we monetized those and became serious about them, we were exposed to firearms training. And it's not something I sought out. It was something that came to us, and being who I am, I challenged the people. It was a guy from Front Sight, Doug, came in, and we'll talk about a chat room thing that we had going in a minute here. But Doug came in and was basically spamming our chat room. And I said, hey, I said something like, put up or shut up or something like that. Like, quit just posting ads here. And he said, oh no, I'm not trying to post ads. I'm trying to get people into training. So come experience our training. And we took him up on that. We went up to Front Sight for 5 days, and experienced firearms training for the first time for me since hunter safety classes or military stuff. And it's amazing. It was eye-opening, and that definitely changed. You can see how much influence training had for our projects. We could not get enough training. Me and the other guys dug in and not only enjoyed the skill sets and the knowledge, but the experience of seeing others teach. And most of us are CCW instructors, the people that were the first gun website shooting team, the 3 or 4 of us that started the whole thing. All but 1 or 2 are CCW instructors and NRA instructors, and attending classes is a neat way to experience different methods, I guess, different techniques of instruction, and firearms instruction certainly useful and interesting and varied. So firearms training became a big part of our initial focus. Again, we were trying to share our experiences with being able to shoot out here recreationally. But that's look at when we started this whole thing in 2004 is the end of the assault weapons ban. Back then, I was buying 1,000 rounds of 7.62 by 39 for $75 or something like that. We would drive up to Phoenix. I remember getting pissed if it cost $100. We would consider it a wasted trip if we had to pay $100 for 1,000 rounds. And we'd buy several thousand rounds each weekend, or each month we'd buy maybe 10,000 rounds or something, and then go shoot it out into the desert just through these AKs that we could now buy. So, for a couple of years, the project, the gun websites was really just shooting into hills. playing with what we could now own after the assault weapons ban. And once we saw that there was more to do than just waste ammo, basically more to do than just pull triggers, to actually have some focus and to learn and to practice and to drill, that became super interesting. So you can see that we did quite a few classes. I can't say that I got a certificate from every class. I didn't attend every one. I didn't attend every one as a student for sure. I probably have maybe 12 certificates out of this 12 classes I attended and graduated from, but auditing classes, attending classes to help share them was really what most of this is. And again, I think that that helped influence. We brought cameras to classes, not to give away secrets or to offer insight into like ways to pick on instructors for problems or issues, but instead to share what firearms training was with people who had never heard of it before. And we knew we weren't alone, and that this was something that was fairly new to just civilians, whatever we want to call regular CCW holders, and just people that are experiencing firearms at whatever pace or rate they're in. So again, some of this first initial stuff was I'm not going to suggest this is the first time cameras were ever taken to the firearms classes, but we certainly became part of the industry by knowing these instructors and getting in with the circles and creating after action reports and reviews that were professional and useful for them and students. Existing alumni, they could look at our pictures and point to them on the forums. When we look at the timeline here, this was all pre-YouTube. This was when the forums were really big and photographs were all we had. It was expensive and difficult and tedious and really not practical to post video yet. So this was a lot of exploration and networking and getting comfortable or getting instructors comfortable with us and our technique and our skills. And again, it was a formative part of our experience because we knew that we were in an area with firearms and I don't want to call it education as much as insight, sharing the firearms culture with people. This was something that we could see that people had not experienced before, and they appreciated some insight into the various aspects of firearms training. It also got us traveling and getting comfortable with meeting new people and taking some risks as far as not going along with the typical recipes. So I guess the next level or the next layer that we're going to take a look at is our projects. We've had plenty of projects over the years, and again, they've kind of, I don't want to say we've been drifting, but we've reacted to circumstances. We don't have any one project that we are going to make work. We have projects, some of them have come and gone. Some of them have failed and some of them have been successes, and I'll kind of track some of them here. So when we first started the whole thing, it was really just us playing around online and sharing our experiences. And as 2015, we started to build websites. In 2005, I could buy things like gunwebsites.com. I could buy things like pistolbuyersguide.com. I could buy things like afteraction.net. It was still, the internet was new. So there were forums back then, and there was the big one, AR-15, and then there were some smaller ones. And we had the exact same issues that we have today. Anonymous loser trolls who aren't there to create or to help or to add, but are there to throw rocks and laugh and diminish, right? So those forums were angry and abusive, and then the sub forums that would come out either regionally on a specific topic, they started to get abusive. So even by 2005, we figured we might as well throw our hat in the ring and put up a forum that was not to be in competition with anything else, just a place on the internet to share information and in conversation. But also it had an ulterior motive. We had a lot of websites, and we didn't want to have a comment section on every website. That's tedious and kind of boring. Instead, we wanted to accumulate all of our comments into one place. And our gunchat.net, our forum, focused on firearms here in, based here in Arizona, run by us, was awesome. And it lasted for years until YouTube really. So we started that in 2005 or 4, I think. It even predates Gun Websites, I think. And we had about 3 iterations of it. There's a couple of people from GunChat. I don't know whoever's listening out there who remembers GunChat. There's a couple of people, though, that I still talk to this day. Recon over on Instagram, and those were the days. So we had some some excellent conversations, and we created a place online that allowed people to come and join, and it was as inclusive as we could. We didn't shy anybody away except for jerks, and lots of education happened there. And then eventually we got into YouTube, and YouTube, like everybody, or like a lot of people know, it starts with getting videos and kicked in the balls. And it was not a social platform at first. It was just simply an inexpensive place to post videos. So we would post the videos maybe on, I think our first video was how to remove the wood on the upper handguard off an AK. It's something that's easy once you've seen it, but it's difficult to describe. So posting a little 30-second video on YouTube was cheaper and more practical than posting it on our own website. So we could post it on YouTube and link to it in our forum and other forums and on our websites. And eventually the YouTube project started to grow. Community started on YouTube, and that's our goal, is to continue to have conversation, not just to post, but to have interactivity. And as YouTube developed and they created the partner system and the community developed there, we focused primarily on that. In fact, the gunchat.net died somewhere around 2009. Just, no one was using the forums anymore. So we let it finally diminish. I don't think that was a failure as much as it had run its course. The websites, though, again, technically and cost-wise, were not bringing in the money they needed compared to what YouTube could do. So we predominantly went to YouTube, and that I consider one of our failures. We put all our eggs in one basket. We did the YouTube game. I think we did fairly successful. At one time, we were the second largest channel, well, depending on if you count FPS Russia, and as far as a gun channel. At some point, though, in 2010, once we were doing pretty well, you could see that there was a formula for YouTube. It was developing. There was stuff that was appealing and it would be promoted, and there was stuff that wasn't. And it was a decision that had to be made to either fight the trends or fight the current, or to just flow with the current. In 2012, kind of took all of our YouTube money up till then. It took about that long to raise about $3,000 back then, and headed off with Haas and my new cop car, and we drove up from Tucson to DC and did some factory tours. We'll talk about stuff we visited here in a minute, but drove around with Haas, and our goal there was to unite the YouTube community, to try to get the YouTube gun community to be aware that we have more than just, we're more than just hobbyists out there. We were amassing something. There was a community beginning, and I could see that there was something different there than what the forums had in the past. So that Armed America tour, failure, success, it's hard to say. Found out about the networks then and had some experience with the networks. That effectively killed our YouTube experience, and I don't consider that a failure. That's probably a good thing in the long run. But that's when we lost all funding on YouTube, starting in 2012. And we no longer focused on trying to play the YouTube game. And again, I think in the overall, that was a benefit to our channel, our projects. So in 2013, we all know what happened in 2012, and in 2013, January, Obama comes out with those 23 proposed executive actions. We saw a grassroots uprising like never before. And one thing I didn't put into this, which I'd have more time, I would put into it, is the political situation. So when we're talking politics here, at least as far as we care about, we got the end of the assault weapons ban in 2004. We had very little major issues until 2012, and then we had our first real fight since 1994. And it was not my, I was 8 years into experience online and not feeling like, we were there to influence, but there to experience, 8 years worth of conversation, 8 years worth of different types of mediums or platforms to have communications. If you go before 2014, you remember I worked at Microsoft and AOL, so I've had some experience with the various types of communications. And when we got to 2013 and we saw that groundswell of grassroots activism and that resistance and that no that was heard, that shall not be infringed, that echoed for quite a while actually, that was inspiring, and it changed again a lot of our concepts. And I'm not saying that we had 2020 hindsight or pre-sight to this, it's just the way it happened. We got focused on community building. So the Every Second Matters project started, and we were part of that, happy to say. And then we created gun channels. Again, that was not necessarily something that was forethought. It was a reaction to the shit that was going on in YouTube. And again, that has to do with the way the forums work, and that just has to do with the way people are developing and understanding the way that we use the internet and communicating and being civil with each other. So when YouTube failed miserably in the end of 2013, tried to push everybody to Google G Plus or whatever it's called, we created gun channels. That community is now 6 years old, and that's one of our successful projects, I think. The Every Second Matters project is not ours, but we champion it and we keep the website going. In 2015, we started focusing on shops and moving from motivating people to be useful with their guns to thinking about our community. And again, as we went to the Gun Rights Policy Conference, we started to change. The success of 2013, the resistance to Obama, and then the subsequent apathy and the complete lack of interest and the lack of resistance or resilience was also an influence to the tour. And having experience, we'll talk about with some of the other stuff that pops up here. The tour was a result, or is a result, of experiences in the past and where we want to take the channel. The Gun Show Loophole tour kind of started with Bob when he came down from Canada. So how many people in their 90s or however old he is have the balls to take his last couple of $5, drag his billion-ton camper with some shitty-ass Dodge truck halfway across the continent down to another country and hang out and talk about guns and freedom?
I don't know anyone else that's done that except for Bob.
I don't know anybody. So yeah, he inspired me to start doing the tour, calling it the Gun Show Loophole Tour, getting my fucking van, and doing the Daily Gun Show. This isn't scripted, so I'm figuring it all out.
No, but
815.
I have a lot of admiration for Bob for doing that, because I mean, he did it twice, right? 2 different times, right?
Twice or 3 times, yeah. And we wouldn't have done the Gun Show Loophole Tour if it wasn't for Bob. I certainly wouldn't be on 868 episodes of this daily show if it wasn't for Bob.
Like, and there's moments there that like I'll never ever forget, like the Sharpie knife fight, and just going to the Browning Museum with Bob and just stuff like that. I mean, those are things, memories that'll last a lifetime. All because of gun channels and people like Bob.
Yep.
Like, it's, you never think about like people maybe outside the country that don't have a Second Amendment but can appreciate ours and like ours, right? And even want to help support our Second Amendment because they don't have one.
And can come in and be part of it.
Exactly.
Carry guns, be part of it. All right, so we'll talk about more how the projects have not dwindled, they've increased, but we're juggling them, and nothing's trying to be perfect here. We're trying to cut new ground. And then we got the 2A History Project, which I'm focusing on now. So we've got now the tour, which every time I go on the road, I call it the tour, so that's easy. We got the History Project. I sneak time for that whenever I can. We've got the podcast, do that every weeknight, so as often as possible. Then we've got the gun channels, which isn't much of my project anymore as much as the people that make it up. So thanks to all of those. And the same thing with Every Second Matters. So that's been our projects over the years. We'll go on to the next slide. Part of traveling for SHOT Show in Florida and in NRA Show in Charlotte. And, oh, you know what I didn't put on here is the Outdoor Media Show. We started doing a lot of traveling in 2010. So we also went to the Outdoor Media Show, which is up in Dead Horse's neck of the woods in Salt Lake. I used to be up in Salt Lake City. So we had already toured Volter. Volter is a freaking awesome company. It's Abrams Aviation. They have stuff that's outside of our solar system. They vibration weld. They've created so many cool things. It's awesome. So we knew Eric, and we had a chance to tour the Volter facility 3 times now over the years. The guys who worked at the shop had toured Fort Knox's facilities over the years, and we had that opportunity to get invited out to Front Sight and tour that. So that got our teeth, how do they say? That got got us the taste for it. And when we traveled in 2009 and 10, we did as much as we could to coordinate factory tours. So North American Arms, Silencer Co., When we went out with Haas in 2012, that was primarily, it was called Friends, Family, and Firearms, and it was manufacturers, museums, and I forgot what the other word was. But we basically, our goal was to check out manufacturers. My actual goal was to go to BC Engineering. That was the reason I decided to take the trip. But Haas was willing to go. We ended up getting an invite to Barrett, one of the very few people to have a tour of the Barrett factory, thanks to James Yeager. Else can suck it. Masterpiece Arms, Nighthawk, Steyr, SOE, Tromix, all of those were on that trip. Later, we've toured Rifle Dynamics, Laser Light, Hornady Factory, and then Bannerman. So we've got lots of factory tours, and putting that in there mainly to I mean, those are neat, and they give you some insight, but overall, they help us get an idea of the scale of the industry. Barrett and Kaiser, for example, couldn't be farther away from each other on the spectrum, but both in our industry. And you know, we share what we can from these tours. I'm not the best videographer or whatever, but you know, hopefully our overall project, you know, incorporates the knowledge we've gleaned from seeing the operations and knowing the people to different levels that run these companies and the contacts and stuff. And again, because of the way we've done this, we're about to talk about funding and stuff here in a minute too. None of this has been, nobody owes us nothing, and we don't owe anybody else nothing. So this has all been in a different relationship. And I like to think that, you know, if no one ever talks to a company except for some sort of a transaction, then that's a loss. So some of these were an intentional, let's talk and not have a transaction take place. Let's simply share what you're doing. So that got us into traveling. We talked about the Arms Across America tour when me and Haas drove however long it takes, 8,000 miles or something, 9,000 miles to drive to DC and back. On that trip, we hit 19 gun shops and 4 museums throughout the years. You know, we've done different efforts towards the tour. Big one in 17, getting out to the Bannerman Castle finally, and then pretty much the big one last year, the second biggest one last year, getting out to Gun Rights Policy in Chicago. For just the Gun Show Loophole tour, we're up to 32,000 miles, 200 gun shops that we visited, 33 museums, and we've covered 36 states. Nowhere near done. Like I say, every time we get in the van, that'll be the Gun Show Loophole tour continued. But again, that's given us insight, and there's no relationship with anybody here other than to share what they're doing and to hopefully share the industry and the community in different ways. I'm going to throw in here media, just because this is sort of an explanation of what we've been doing over the last 15 years. And again, I never intended, I guess if you go way back to even before 2004, I don't remember the first time, some of our websites were the first websites out there. We had the first websites for Southern Arizona fishing. So there's a book published back in the day that mentions our websites, because we were literally the only online resource with pictures and information about the lakes down here. So we had been in books before, but it wasn't until 2010 that we were approached to write an article. So that was the first time I had an opportunity to write and to see what it's like being part of the publishing community, I guess, or the traditional media or the old media. And then again in 2012, because of our YouTube success, I guess, they used some of our video on Modern Marvels. And that was another insight into like mass media or traditional media, I guess. In 2014, we were brought on board twice because they redid the movie to offer props for the gun show scene in the movie 600 Miles. And again, got a even better chance to really see what it's like to make a movie. The first time they filmed it, it was the guy with Wings, and the second time, who's that guy from Wings? So one of the actors from the show Wings. And then I guess he sucks. So then they brought in a different actor, the guy from Tim Roth. They brought in Tim Roth, who eventually starred in the movie. So it's certainly interesting to see the movie side of things. It just, you know, again, we're no experts, but to get a taste of it. I've known publishers throughout the years, so as we started to, again, think about funding, which will be the next thing here, we've started to do some self-publishing with the cards. And instead of doing something like a book where you just go off and hang out at a, you know, some kind of lake retreat for 6 months and come back with a book, our efforts here have been to do all these things as open as possible with interaction, so people can see the software we use and the decision-making process and which guns or which inventors to include. as well as the process with the fundraising and the campaigns and stuff to encourage and to show others, what's possible and what's worked and what hasn't. So we've had some experience with media, and again, I'm not going to suggest that this is ultimate experience or anything, but it's helped. I think it helps to show how it's influenced. We saw in the early days some of the ways that the game can be played, and I know in about 2014 or something, we were raging against traditional media, and that has something to do with my tastes of traditional media and the lack of its flexibility and the lack of its effectiveness, I think, and that rage and that, like, that's when I came out with the new media patches and stuff. Like, that was all about let's be the new media. And I'd say over the next couple of years, I had a real letdown with new media. New media is a bunch of punks. So my initial distaste with traditional media and my souped up on how good the internet is led me to really rebel against traditional media there for a while, and I'm definitely rebounding on that. And I think the cards are a part of that, but some of the projects I've got in mind for the future, we took this timeline out into the future. Some of that stuff will include some more traditional media stuff, and I can definitely see the value of some of the stuff that I don't know if I was blinded to before, just didn't regard as heavily before. And again, after a few years of seeing the lack of what new media does, not what they could do or not the potential, but what actually gets done, there's no need to abandon traditional stuff. We should enhance in traditional stuff and involve it. But again, it's put that in there to kind of show some of that influence. And then finally, we get to funding. We're capitalists, and part of this is to hopefully encourage some of the people that'll be attending the Gun Rights Policy Conference, some of the people that are out there doing valid 2A beneficial projects. I don't really care if somebody's out there doing gun reviews. Honestly, the stuff that I would have for you is not going to work. I know the recipes, I think, but I don't practice the recipes on how to make $1 million making gun videos on YouTube. So I'm not here to suggest I'm going to help anybody get rich quick. But if you're a Second Amendment project and you're looking for ideas, we started out, and you can see I kind of did this in a timeline fashion. We started out with the websites doing banner ads, USCCA, Brownells, banner ads. So Amazon links, Advent link, all that kind of stuff. And that made a living for a long time. That was all there was. Then things changed. YouTube started to pay us. When we started to travel in 2009, we got a taste of what we could do. And we started to have interest in traveling, and that was too expensive. So we got sponsors to travel. So I had some experience back in 2010 with having sponsors on board, and the benefits was money, but the disadvantages were many. And so we've got some experience there, but I don't do sponsorships anymore. So I'm not going to have ultimate experience there for anybody, but I can give you some insight. Then we had years there where we didn't have to worry about funding, and that's where YouTube was paying all the bills. And that was certainly interesting, and it's always fun to have YouTube paying more money than I made more money before, but I made a lot of money to do basically nothing there for a few years. As far as actual product, it was just all YouTube videos. There was a lot of money being made, and then that ended, like I say, because of the way the world works and decisions and stuff, for a good thing though, because I think when you find easy money, you become weak, right? You get lax, and you just play that recipe, and you suckle off of whatever instructions work, and you don't create, you just emulate, you just repeat. So that got us motivated, and again, seeing all this stuff on the timeline, it might you can see how once you get to the Gun Rights Policy Conference, I lose all interest in doing YouTube stuff. If I had a level in here to talk about reviews, the number of reviews we did at like SHOT Show 2005 and 6 and 7 were like 2 or 3 of us going to SHOT Show. By 2008, 9, and 10, we had a crew of like 7 showing up, and we had 300 videos, I think, in 2010. That goes down to like 111, and if you look at just the count of videos, not just SHOT Show, there's this wave here, and then it just dies because we don't create videos for reviews and numbers anymore. And again, that has to do with over time, seeing how the industry went, seeing the reaction of what new media was actually doing with their potential, and then we started getting into the crowdfunding, both with the projects, doing the cards and the other crowdfunding projects, but also the membership type of thing with gun channels, experimenting with having a membership site, which has been a concept for internet stuff since forever. And you can see it took us till 2013 before we even entertained it. And I'm not going to suggest it's the best or even a good technique for raising funds, but I definitely have some experience with it now after 6 years. And then we've got the gear website. So we also make our own products and have our own store. And then we've got the subscription thing going with the Patreon now. So there's lots of different funding options out there we've experienced. Our experience with many of them, we have experience, with some more than others. And our goal has been and continues to be sharing this knowledge. We've got 30-something crowdfunding projects at this point. We've been doing Patreon since 2016. It's been helping support the project primarily since the last 2 years. Again, if somebody's interested in a 2A project and wants to talk about any of this stuff, one of the reasons I'm putting this out there so that you know that this is the kind of questions you can ask. So to wrap it up, this is the end picture, the 13th slide. We've been to SHOT Show 14 times. We've done 7 major tours, posted something like 8,000 videos across the different platforms. We've got 4 terabytes worth of photographs. We've been doing live chats like this one for 11 years. We've been doing this particular daily show for 850-something episodes. I like to think we have pretty serious accounts on at least 4 major social media platforms. We've been to 40-something training courses with 18 different instructors in 4 different states. I visited 203 gun shops, 33 museums, 25 factory tours, and altogether, including planes, we've traveled over 50,000 miles and hit 36 states in all this. We've been published in books and magazines. We've been in one motion picture. We've been on a cable Modern Marvels cable TV show, and we self-publish. We've worked with sponsors, which sucks. We've done our own banner ads and stuff. We've done crowdfunding and subscriptions. We have a membership system, and we build our own shit. So that's where we're at today. This is going to end up being a video tomorrow when I can figure out what all I want to say with this mass, see how long this took to talk about. But this is to let people know, like, if this is something that you want to see continue, then get on board. This is something that started in 2014 as some guys online shooting guns and posting pictures online. Where is Gary in here? Where is Dead Horse in here? Support the people that you think can blossom into something else. We didn't start 15 years ago to have a chart like this 15 years later, but this is an effort to show what we've been doing for people that might have just jumped on in the last couple of years. And I think it kind of shows why we've been efforting towards what we've been doing. And with that, I'll shut up and see if anybody's even awake.
That 50,000 miles is pretty impressive. So I believe like it's 24,000 miles to go around the Earth. So that means that you've driven around the Earth twice, basically.
Is that the real? I didn't know that.
Yeah, that's real. Like it's like 24,500, I think, to go around the Earth. What's that, Gary?
I said, wow, that's really impressive.
Yeah, so you basically have circled the Earth twice.
At least 2 of those trips were in an airplane, though. Going to North Carolina and Salt Lake City, so I don't know.
Well, Salt Lake City's not far, but still, I mean, that's impressive.
It's a lot of time behind the wheel.
Yeah, if we had transporters, everybody'd be up for that numbers, right?
Well, yeah.
On the factory tours, like 25 plus factory tours, I mean, that's real. I don't know anyone who's probably been to that many at all. Like,
well, no, that's the thing. I'm nothing special. Think about factory reps. So factories will go to each other. So first off, a lot of people that work in factories have been to way more than 25 factories, right? Not just competitors, but like, somebody forging some piece for them or something. So and then to think about the people who work for, I don't know, a grip. They got to go talk to manufacturers all over the place. Somebody who makes a site, right? So there's people in the industry that cover this. This would be rookie numbers to somebody who's in the industry. Now you think about somebody who's like a factory rep for a company or a manufacturer. that goes out and their job is to go to gun shops every day. They might hit 5 gun shops a day and be on the road 2/3 of the year. So I got weak numbers. The thing I've got different is I'm not going in there to sell them nothing, so nobody's eyes roll. They don't even know who the hell I am. And my only goal is to share the shop with the rest of the world, and ideally get that shop, if they're worth the shit, a couple extra views or something on whatever it is they're efforting on. Now I don't know if somebody do you think that NSSF sends people out to just recon and just see how the industry's doing, to be monitors of the industry? Is that a word?
I don't think so. I don't even know if the NRA or I don't think anyone that I've heard of has feelers out, pay people just for feelers.
Yeah, I don't think the NRA would, because that's too big a project. But I would think NSSF, if anyone. Kansas City takes a factory tour every day. Same factory every day. Yeah, so, well, I appreciate it. I needed a chance to, how long has this been? 45 minutes? There's no way I can make that into a video, so I don't know what to do here. I'll make it into some kind of a slideshow, I guess, some little fancy music. But, it's an effort to try to show 15 years worth of stuff. Like I say, I think if I had more time, I wanted to put a level for 2A to show, things like the rallies we've gone to, and the anti-rallies, unfortunately. The end of the assault weapons ban and the executive orders and the bump stock thing, and the brace this. But infographics, it gets pretty tough. Even this, you can't even read any of this stuff down here. It's so small. So I guess, I'll just wrap it up with encourage everybody. If you're not archiving your stuff, I'd highly encourage you to do it. You never know how long your projects are going to run, and if it takes any amount of time. This was actually kind of a dual thing. It's been something I've been wanting to do for a while. I like to do it every so often. I've done some videos in the past just to let people know where we're coming from and where we're going, and so that it's out there, right? I'm sure Patreons might care. But this is also because I've just been accumulating a bunch of stuff from old hard drives onto a blank hard drive I found, and kind of facilitated having all the tour stuff in one spot to be able to accumulate it all. But otherwise, it's tough. So if you've been doing stuff for a little while and you fill up a hard drive, and now you've got 2 or 3 hard drives that aren't even your main hard drives anymore, it might be tough to, or make time consuming at least, to go back and figure out everything you've been doing. So encourage, if you're creating a project every so often, either if you do a newsletter is an ideal way to do a summary of what's been going on. But otherwise, if you're doing videos and stuff primarily, or blogs, consider every once a year or something at least, and maybe not do it at the end of the year like a lot of people do. Maybe do it in the middle of the year. Y'all got anything else to chat about tonight? Thanks for jumping in.
I don't have anything else tonight.
Not tonight.
BTP saying break it up. That's what I was thinking, because it's way too small to read. I'll probably do each section in a full slide, and then maybe do a couple minutes on each one. 10 minutes, 30 seconds on each one. Just do 10-minute videos, and then put them out there for people to check out. All right, well, it's weird not having the other chat, so just checking the YouTube chat over there. And I guess with that, I should flip it over to live and see what's been happening, if I'm missing anything. No, not really. So with that, thanks everybody for showing up. Thanks for the high thumb ratio, 101% thumb ratio. Gizzard's got a show coming up Friday, I believe.
Yep, South Territory, 9 Eastern, 8 Central.
Dead Horse, got anything coming up? Late night chats each night, or the late lobbies each night?
Yeah, I've been doing the evening lobbies from about sometime between 12 and 2 until they end every day. And then hopefully I'll be settled enough to start back up early watch next week, is what I'm hoping for.
Right on. I know we were chatting a little bit off air that I've kind of been going through some old laptops, extra laptops, donated laptops kind of things. And yeah, we're going to try to figure out something to have more chats, especially as we get closer to, well, the gun rights policy. Hopefully it'll get people motivated to start chatting about something besides bickering. And we start thinking about strategy for 2020. We've got all the potential in the world to not have the best lawn chair seats, bleacher seats for this next election cycle, but instead to use all the stuff we've learned over the last years and attempt to influence education and awareness, right? So we're going to try to have some open rooms over there for just general discussion focused on guns, and then the 2A workshops jumping in as much as possible. So anybody who's listening to this, I know you already know about the project. If you would, please remember to help share it around. That's the power of it. And be back same time tomorrow.